Brandon, if our friend group were the Seven Samurai, which one of us would die first?
Oh, interesting. Should I say it's you?
Why not?
That's kind of what I'm feeling like a little bit.
Okay, but like how?
Getting chopped in half.
Am I just unlucky? Do I mess up?
No, I think you would be wrong place.
Wrong time.
Yeah, wrong place, wrong time. That
sounds about right for me.
Yeah, I feel like you
that.
just like accidentally wander out and then somebody would just like, you know how they're going to hit the guy on the head?
Yeah.
That would be like the reverse of you. You leave the building and then somebody
someone
just like
gets
slices you in half. Yeah. I would be traumatized forever and I would never be able to leave the building. I couldn't even fight, you know?
Yeah. Well, I was going to say you were going to survive. Like you're not going to die in this scenario because people are going to be like, oh my God, the enemy's here. We got to go fight him. And you would just be like, eh.
That's true.
And everyone else go fight them and like
yeah,
die,
I'll be the mastermind. Just stay behind. Yeah, everybody go out and fight. I'll join you in a second.
I'll be there at some point. This is your co-host, as usual, David, joined by
your other co-host, Brandon. We have a great episode for you today because we are talking about Japan in weirdly two ways. This is more of a loose connection that we did this time, but David was like, I really want to watch Seven Samurai. It's an epic. We have to watch it. And it is extremely long.
And it's a classic.
It is a classic too. And I said, well, I guess we should do an album that has a song that's kind of in Japanese. So,
yeah,
you know what?
Partially.
We did it. And you know what? This is a classic too. This is a huge album in EDM because it kind of changed a lot of stuff, which is weird because I feel like I've said this about all of the EDM albums we've done, but at the same time, like we've only done like 4 or 5 of them and it's been true every time. So, but before we get into all of that, I do have to ask David the eternal question. What did you watch in this past week?
I literally this morning watched Obsession, which just came out. Yeah, no, literally today. And I am happy to report that it did live up to the hype. It is a very good film. It's very, very creepy, and it's creepy in a way where a lot of the creepiness doesn't come from the jump scares. Like it's genuinely unnerving. So yeah, I'm really happy to report that it is good. I think if you like that sort of thing, go watch it. If you don't, definitely don't go watch it because you will get creeped out. But I think it's a very interesting like take on relationships or a certain type of relationship. It's a 4.5. It's in my top 10 officially.
Wow.
Yeah.
Let's go.
No, it really worked for me. And it worked like what it was trying to do worked for me, and also its horror really worked for me. What have you been listening to?
I'm so glad you asked. I could have listened to any of the 3 Drake albums, but I'm going to save that for my flight that's coming up in a few days.
Oh, God.
And I will report back probably next episode if I remember to listen to them or if I survive through them.
Yeah.
But I listened to a different rap album this week, Bulldog by Kenny Mason. And I'm happy to report that this is my favorite rap album of the year so far. I don't think it's amazing and it doesn't make my list because of one reason. There are features on this album that are not good. Just straight up. There's only one feature that's really good. It's JID. He's a great rapper. He's friends with Kenny Mason. But all the other ones are just kind of like, they add nothing to the song. And Kenny Mason is so good that I'd rather just hear him on a song by himself than with other people. But this was a very fun album and it's very underrated. He is underrated. I talked about him on our TikTok series, which is also on YouTube and Instagram plug. He kind of fuses rock music and rap music together, which is, you know, something new and something that you don't always hear all the time. And then he's also just like probably one of the best lyricists of our generation, like genuinely. So that's what I listen to. But with that, we have to talk about our main event this week, one of the co-main events, our album, because this is Worlds, sort of, because we're actually going to start with a song that's not on the album. And before all of that, I have to ask you, David, I have talked about Porter Robinson extensively to you. I've seen him in concert twice. I think I've talked about him on this podcast before. I believe I would have last summer when I saw him at Summerfest. But I have to ask you, have you ever heard anything by him?
Nope. Not that I am consciously aware of, I should say.
So I'm going to do a little bit of background on Porter Robinson before we talk about this magical song. His actual name is Porter Robinson. He grew up in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and taught himself everything about producing music. He started releasing music in his early teens, but it wasn't until his song Say My Name came out that he really broke into the mainstream in the EDM world. His main genre at the time was complextro, which we just talked about a few weeks ago with Zed. And Porter Robinson actually coined the term complextro. So that's kind of fun. And just like Zed, with whom he collaborated on the song Clarity, he signed to Skrillex's record label, Ausla. He released his EP Spitfire in 2011, which upon its release caused the EDM music store Beatport to crash. It became the site's most downloaded release, beating out Scary Monsters and Nice Sprites by Skrillex, which we covered earlier this year and last season.
Right, that's crazy.
This EP brought a lot of new ears to his music, but in typical fashion, he decided to change up his sound with the next release. And that brings us to what we listened to before the album. The song Language, released April 1st, 2012 by Big Beat Records and Ministry of Sound. And we listened to this song for 3 reasons. 1, it is his best known song pre-Worlds. 2, it is the song that inspired him to start the concept of Worlds. And 3, it is considered one of the greatest EDM songs ever. This song features vocals from Bright Lights, who wrote it with Porter Robinson, and it's produced by Porter Robinson. And Bright Lights is a connection to Zed as well, so that's kind of fun.
It's literally all interconnected.
It really is. And I kind of didn't plan to do it this way, but it really worked out that we listened to these albums in the correct order, because we will even talk about Discovery by Daft Punk in a little bit, because that was the first one we listened to, and that is kind of like the foundation of every other EDM album we've listened to on the podcast. So with that, I actually want to hear from you first about what you thought about Language. And listeners, if you haven't listened to this song because we didn't tell you to listen to it, go listen to it. It's like 6 minutes long. It's, I know, kind of long, but I do think it's worth it. And it is this era. Like if you liked Clarity by Zed, or like the album or the song, I would recommend listening to this because it's different, but it's still in that same like vein.
Going into this, I remember what you had told me. His specific style was kind of in between Daft Punk and Skrillex.
Yeah, kind of a triangulation between them and Zed as well.
Yeah, kind of like in the middle of all that kind of. So going into this, I was very conscious of that and didn't know what to expect. When it comes to this song, it definitely sounded more techno to me than something like Discovery, which obviously I'm a big fan of, and that did affect things in the negative slightly, I will say, to be totally transparent. But I think ultimately it's a solid song. It has a lot of twists and turns, I think partially because of like the length of it. And it ultimately, you know, a lot of elements did work for me, although I do think that I prefer the production style of a lot of other things, or a lot of other like artists in the genre, including songs in the album itself that we're going to talk about soon. So this was ultimately a 3. It kind of, I feel like, redeemed itself towards the end more because all the techno stuff was just not for me really. But I feel like, again, it wasn't to the level of something like, you know, a Skrillex song, for instance. So I think that is also why maybe it worked a little bit more for me.
This one does kind of set the tone for the album, but as you will find out from this podcast, and if you listen to the album, it is very different. You know, there are a lot of different sounds because at this time, Language was still like, you know, it was in a progressive electro house, which was the dominant style. And then with Worlds, he was kind of like, what if I do something different? But the warm reception of Language, seeing that he could make more melodic things that were deeper, I guess, for lack of a better term, like allowed him to think like, I can do something else. I can innovate. But I have to tell you about this song. So it was included on the soundtrack of the racing video game Forza Horizon. That was always talked about when it came out. And people would be like, oh my God, it's the song from the video game. And a lot of people still call EDM and specifically Complextro Rocket League music. I think a lot of it was used on the soundtrack of the video game, but like I don't really know too much about that. I just know it by its Porter Robinson given name, Complextro. But anyway, Language, I said easily 5 stars. This is actually the life-changing festival progressive house song that everyone says it is. I love the piano, of course, and the pseudo Complextro breakdown section that's actually a build-up where it almost sounds like machinery is so awesome, especially when juxtaposed with the drop, which I feel like can only be described as heavenly. And I have to shout out Bright Lights because her vocal is so beautiful on here too. And I said this is just a masterclass all around. And as far as I can remember, it is the best festival progressive house song. This is a holy text to 2010's EDM, and rightfully so. Obviously, I gave this a 5. I remember hearing this, though, and when it came out, it was kind of like, whoa, like this is different. Like this is what everybody's going to try to recreate now. And I have a quote here from Porter Robinson from an article by The Fader. Language was a departure for me from the material I had been doing, which was a very heavy bass-aggressive sound. I remember being very nervous about how people would feel about something a bit more sensitive from me. Not only did people accept it, but it was the biggest thing I'd done. Once I found myself a platform, it had me thinking, what if I've been going about this totally wrong? And what if I could do something way, way better? And that brings us to Worlds, the debut album by Porter Robinson, released August 12th, 2014 by Sample Sized and Astroworks. It was supported by 4 singles, all released before the album. And I have to ask you, David, what were your expectations about the album, both before you listened to Language and after you listened to Language?
Honestly, I feel like they were the same before and after because I feel like Language honestly just reinforced what you told me.
Okay.
So I kind of thought it would be somewhere in the 3 range where like some stuff would work for me and then other stuff just wouldn't. But I definitely was intrigued to see if maybe, I don't know, if it could work more for me than I thought it could. I do definitely feel like I felt like I wasn't sure what to expect in some ways.
Classic David right there.
Classic me. I never know what's going on.
So this is a long quote that is from an article by The Fader about the album that also has a quote from Porter Robinson in it. There's a lot of reporting about this album, but this is kind of like the article that like does a lot of the heavy lifting. So I'm going to just read it verbatim as it appears in the Fader article. Over the past few weeks, Robinson has been rolling out the first few singles of his debut album, Worlds. Accompanying the new material have been a few interviews, which have offered pull quotes far juicier than ones about the label bidding war won by Astroworks. EDM is entertainment, not art, he told NME sacrilegiously. To Australia's In the Mix, he said, by trying to incorporate DJ-friendly and dance-friendly elements into my music, I was often compromising and making songs worse. His DJing, which he's flown to Vegas to do, and I've flown to Vegas to witness, is naturally the first thing we talk about. There's so much shit that I'm doing today that I'm super, super proud of, he tells me. And this is one of the things that I'm less proud of. Raising his arms like he's on a cross, he says, this is the most feigned posture in dance music, and there's so many of these top 100 DJs that go up there and play this music that I don't think they care for at all because it brings in paychecks. It seriously goes back to the very, very basic idea of being a sellout. That is the whole quote from the article. So Porter Robinson hated EDM and approached this album as a way to be creative again. Dance music is perhaps the most formulaic genre because there are only 2 things each song has, a drop and a breakdown. And that's kind of rudimentary because there's also a build-up, but also sometimes there isn't. He talked about the moment that everything changed in his mind. He was DJing in Australia and realized halfway through his set that he didn't care about the music he was playing and felt like he wanted to alienate his fans. He grew up playing massively multiplayer online role-playing games, which are games that create giant worlds. He said that the feeling when they shut down was partly what inspired the sadness of the album, along with the video game The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. The album has themes of fantasy, escapism, fiction, and nostalgia, and critics called its genre electropop. I personally have problems with this, mostly because Spotify internally would call this a pop EDM album, and that is what I'm going to do. This album was kind of born out of a hatred for the genre, which I find very interesting because it actually ended up being like a love letter to the genre and kind of reinventing like what EDM was popular. I think this quote by John Ochoa of DJ Mag sums it up well. Worlds was Robinson's attempt to change the course of an entire genre and scene. He succeeded. I'm not sure if it was solely because of this album, but there was a notable shift of focus to melody in dance music, which is really when I started to enjoy it broadly outside of a select few artists that at this point we have all covered on this podcast. And the public loved this album too. As I became more involved in EDM spaces online, I would often see people say that this was either their favorite album or the greatest EDM album of all time, and usually both. It peaked at number 18 on the Billboard Hot 100 and number 1 on the top dance albums chart in the US. And yes, I know this album very well. I bought it back in the day and was a little disappointed in it at first, which seems to be a theme with me and Porter Robinson's work. It always seems to arrive before I really need it. And I found that with his other two albums, Nurture and Smile, they became way more important to me after being out for quite some time. The art on this album was made by David Aguado. All songs are produced and mixed by Porter Robinson, and the album was mastered by Karen Thompson, Mike Marsh, and Simon Davey. I said your favorite song will be Years of War, and your least favorite will be Flicker. I also want to make a note that I think you won't like Natural Light, but it won't be your least favorite. And I said you're going to give this a 3.5. And with that, it's time for track number 1, Divinity, featuring Amy Milan, is how some people have said it. I thought it was Millen, but I don't know. There's 2 L's. Written by Amy Milan and Porter Robinson. Porter said that he felt like he stumbled upon the sound of worlds with this song, and that it was the first song to be around 90 BPM and have moody chords, which ultimately is the vibe of this album. Amy Milan is also from the Canadian indie band Stars, which he said had a huge influence on his childhood. And the song was featured in Google's Year in Search video for 2014 and has been certified gold. Just like on Language, I do want to hear from you first. So tell me what you thought about this song.
When it first started playing, I was like, I don't know about the vocals.
Do you mean Amy's vocals, or do you mean the vocal chops that are in the song?
I feel like both didn't really work for me going into this. And it was kind of honestly reminiscent of Skrillex.
That's the slower tempo, I think.
Yes, I think it was a slower tempo. Although ironically, when the quieter parts started to play, I started to kind of warm up to the song. And then when the song builds up after the quiet part, and it's kind of more like music versus music and a voice, that's when it really, really worked for me. And it ended up being a song that actually that I actually really enjoyed. It's definitely more of a mixed bag than a lot of, other EDM songs that we've listened to that are maybe further from techno or similar styles to that. But this is a 3.5.
Nice.
And in general, I feel like that was kind of my interpretation of this album, where, not to get into things too early, but I feel like this is the type of album where some things specifically work for me very well and some things specifically don't work for me. So it's kind of like how I like a certain song depends on which way it leans.
I feel pretty good about the 3.5 overall then. I was hoping you would like it a little bit more, but I also understand why you don't. And it makes sense why you don't.
Yeah.
But I do think that this song does lean a little bit more into the melodic dubstep aspect of the album, because it is that slower tempo. It's got a huge snare, and it's a little bit more driving, I guess, than typical pop EDM songs. But it also I don't know, there's a greater focus placed on melody overall in the album and
I
in
think
this song
that's what
too.
Worked for me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to say. I feel like this is more something that, I don't know, you could learn to appreciate more than something like Skrillex.
Yeah, no, I do agree with that. That's kind of the mix that I'm talking about, where there are certain elements like the focus on melody that works really well for me, even if other parts don't as much.
Well, David, I have to tell you, I think this is the only way that he could have opened the album. This is one of the most memorable songs from the album, in my opinion, as well. I remember multiple summers I listened to this song while stargazing, and I still think it's one of my favorite nighttime songs in general. And this will be a theme throughout the album, but I love the sadness mixed with hope that's present in this song. It feels like both finding and losing love, which I think is very beautiful. And I was going to shout out specific sections of the song, but I think they're actually all incredible. And I will say, though, that the outro and the drops are some of my absolute favorites on the album. I gave the song a 4.5. Starting off strong.
Very strong.
Hopefully, we will continue with track number 2, Sad Machine, written by Porter Robinson. And it features vocals from the Vocaloid program Ivana. This was the second single released May 13th, 2014. It peaked at number 29 in the Billboard Hot Dance Electronic Songs chart, and it is certified gold in the US. This was the last song written for the album. He said that he wanted this song to make the listeners anticipate a drum and bass song, which we haven't covered, but it is a fast and energetic style of EDM that is not necessarily the opposite of what we have here, but is definitely opposed in many ways. He described this song as fragile and vulnerable, but also wistful and nostalgic. I liked using his own words to describe the songs because I feel like it makes sense, you know? I feel like it comes through too.
Yeah, I agree with that.
This song never hit for me when it was released as a single, and even in the context of the album for a long time. I think I wasn't a fan of the robotic vocals, but I do really love them now. I do not think you will be a fan of them, though, but we'll talk about that in a second. I gotta shout out the little things I love throughout this album. And a lot of the drops on this album, he puts in these little rhythmic moments to keep it fresh. And he's one of the only artists I feel like I'm on the same wavelength as when it comes to rhythmic oddities, which everyone likes to call ear candy now. I'm still not a fan of that word, though, that phrase.
Yeah.
He's talked about the line, "I'll depend on you," as the robot can't survive without the human that controls it, both in the story of the album and in a real sense, because someone has to program what it will sing and how it will sing it. It's a more positive outlook on an innocent artificial intelligence that is learning to be a human. And now, of course, we just have evil AI that is going to take over the world and make everybody's art for them.
Literally.
Fuck AI. That piercing melody in the second half of the final drop is so gorgeous. There are so many pop production style techniques present here that I love. And this is a fan favorite. I always liked it somewhat, just not as much as the others on the album. However, seeing it live did change my opinion, and it is now a 4.5. It is a lower 4.5 than Divinity, but I do think it is very special. What did you think about this one, and did you hate it because of the Vocaloid?
I definitely did not like the vocals going into this. At some point, the melody really takes over, and the vocals kind of go out for a long time. And I gotta say, the production in this specific song, putting the vocals to the side, is, I think, one of the best productions in this whole album. I think that the melody is just so beautiful and captivating that even though after the first minute or so, I was like, I don't know if I like this. It ended up absolutely taking over and changing my mind to the point that because of the strength of the production, in spite of the vocals, this is actually a 4.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a low 4 because of the vocals, because you were right, those don't really work for me, but I feel like the rest of the song is so strong that I end up not really minding that much.
Damn.
It makes me forget about the part that I don't really like. And I think that goes to your point about the melody. The melody is the focus, and because it is the focus, ultimately that takes over for me and makes it work.
When he plays this song live, he plays these giant light up balls that play the melody, which I think is really fun.
You surprised?
And yes, I am extremely surprised that you liked this, because I never know what you're going to say. I know what you don't like, but then I don't know if other things are going to work for you. I knew you were not going to like the vocals, and you said that, but then it's well, I don't know. I wouldn't have predicted that this song, the melody of this song, works better for you than other ones on here. But I do want to ask you, this is a 4. Is this the same score as your eventual favorite?
Yes.
Okay.
I will say, I do think the fact that this album is a mixed bag, and that even the songs I really like have elements in it that maybe don't work as well, is what kind of keeps it from going higher than that. I feel like there's still a threshold that I don't have with something like, Discovery or other EDM that's in a style that works even better for me than this, if you get what I mean. So I think that definitely plays a part, but who knows about the future? Maybe if this grows on me,
I hope it will. And I did predict this next song to be your favorite. Track number 3, Years of War, featuring Breanne Deeren and Sean Caskey. Written by Breanne Deeren, Porter Robinson, and Sean Caskey. Porter said that he imagines this song as kids with trash can shields and baseball bat swords. He said it took over 300 hours to write and that it was probably the least fun, but that it turned out exactly like he wanted. This is one of the poppier tracks on here, and it's one that I've always loved. It feels exactly like he described, I think. I feel like there's a sense of childlike wonder and innocence here that I really love. I want to see it in a post-apocalyptic coming-of-age movie. So, David, get to writing, please. I think the vocals are nice, but ultimately aren't as strong as some of the others on here. This one is, however, a very high 4. I debated 4 versus 4.5 a lot of the time, but I was like, you know what? I'm gonna differentiate it from the previous 2 tracks with a 4. Although I do listen to this one a lot more because I feel like just the fact that it is a poppier song is just like something that I enjoy, because that is my main genre. And that is why I picked it to be your favorite.
I do think that this production does work very well. And it's interesting. I feel like, ironically, this song kind of focuses more on the beat versus the melodic elements of EDM, if that makes any sense. I don't know if that makes any sense.
It is a more simple melody. I don't know if that's partly what like caused that
I feel
change.
like the focus is more on the rhythms of the production rather than the sounds, if that makes any sense. I will say, even though the fact that there's no vocal manipulation, which does help, this is a 3.5. I do like this, and it's enjoyable to listen to, and it's more enjoyable than like the very first section of Sad Machine, for instance. But because of the strength of like Sad Machine's, production, and the fact that it is so overly melodic that it just doesn't compare really. It never reaches the high pretty much of Sad Machine for me, at least. Which is not to say that it's bad. Like, it's still 3.5.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
I get it.
But yeah, that's the interpretation I got of this. Ironically, I would have guessed that you would think that another song was my favorite, not this song. I wouldn't have thought that you would think that this was my favorite. But I can see it.
Interesting.
Because there is no like vocal stuff going on. So I see the thought process. Honestly. Now I get it.
Yeah, I mean, the other two I considered, I should say, are Polygon Dust and Hear the Bells, because I feel like those are also the poppier songs.
Yeah, I can see that.
I also was going to make a note that you were going to love Fellow Feeling until the drop, which I think I actually did write down, but we'll talk about that when we get there.
Yeah, we'll get there.
We had a bunch of other songs to cover first. And one of them is track number 4, Flicker, written by Porter Robinson. This song samples some dialogue from the Japanese anime series Waiting in the Summer. This was the 4th and final single, released July 28th, 2014. It peaked at number 34 on the Billboard Dance Electronics Songs chart. Flicker wasn't meant to be a song for Worlds. It started as an emulation of Discovery by Daft Punk, which is Porter Robinson's favorite album, flipping a soul sample into a hip-hop-ish beat. The Japanese vocals are a collection of poorly translated song titles and lyric ideas that he thought were cool. He said it's not meant to be a pop song, but instead a journey. David, I want you to go first because I have a feeling that this is your least favorite song.
Yeah, so I honestly don't see... It shocked me to hear you say that this was like based on Discovery, because...
You don't hear the guitars and the like funk there?
I mean, I do, but this feels so much closer to techno to me. Again, I don't know much about it, but like...
I'm curious what you mean.
Okay, what is the correct phrase?
I don't know. I don't know what you're referring to. Do you mean dubstep? Because there is more dubstep here.
Thank you.
Techno's
okay, I've
more
been
of like
mixing up.
More like a house-based genre.
I've been trying to like describe the Skrillex sound.
The Skrillex sound. Yes, dubstep.
Yes.
Or brostep.
Okay, thank you.
If you want to be American with it.
I totally forgot how we were talking about his music. So,
damn,
but
that's how much you hated it.
So much closer. Yeah, I would just try to like cross that on my brain. No, I mean there are definitely elements that worked there too, but yeah, I think the fact that this sounds too so much closer to dubstep to me is kind of what makes it kind of crazy that like this is based off Discovery, even though like when you say it, like you can see those elements in there for sure.
Yes, I think what happened is he made a song that was like in the style of Discovery, and then he chopped it up to make this song. So like it originally started as an emulation of Discovery, but like ultimately the final product is something that's totally different.
No, yeah, I agree. And I think that's why I didn't really realize it. But I mean, yeah, this style just isn't for me. As people probably know who have listened to the Skrillex episode, go listen to that. Yeah, it's a 2.5. It could have been lower. Like it didn't fully go crazy, which I think helped it not go below that. But yeah, don't want to listen to this again. Like I wouldn't return.
Is it your least favorite?
Honestly, I didn't even consciously think about if it is, but
that means you have another 2.5?
I do.
Whoa.
Honestly,
Natural
this
light.
is not my least favorite.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Yeah, this is not. I just remembered something specific about the other song, so we'll get there.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, I said, let's fucking go.
Yeah.
When this came out as a single, I had no idea what to think of it. It is so weird and funky, and the structure makes no sense a lot of the time, but it works very well for me. One of the lines that keeps being repeated is, I'm trying to find just what's really important to me in Japanese. So that's kind of fun. That's like that watashi thing that it keeps saying. I'm not going to try to do a like romanized version of Japanese. So sorry if you wanted a white boy to speak a little Japanese. This is not the podcast for you.
That's okay. We'll be saying a lot of Japanese names later, so just wait for that.
You will be saying a lot of Japanese names later.
I will be saying. And then you will just be saying that guy.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm very prepared to refer to one man specifically. Well, also there's Yohei, which is like Shohei Ohtani, so shout out to him.
True.
Anyway,
True.
If you, audience member, decided, I don't really care about EDM, I'm going to skip listening to the album this week, go back and listen to this song at least. I can guarantee you have never heard anything like it. And if you have heard something like it, I expect an email sent to upcpod@gmail.com with a link to that song. I rated this song a perfect 5. This is my favorite on the album.
Whoa.
Always has been, always will be. This is just an amazing song that is unlike anything else.
So we are, again, just fully diverging.
That's why I picked this to be your least favorite, and I was hoping it was, because, you know, that's a classic us right there.
I mean, hey, you did get like very close, very, very close. So,
well, I'm wondering if your least favorite is this next song, track number 5, Fresh Static Snow, written by Porter Robinson, and it features vocals from the Vocaloid Ivana. This was the first song he wrote using the Vocaloid Ivana. He described it as disco-y and soulful and wanted an eerie vocal. This is a mostly direct quote from the World's Commentary album on Spotify. Fresh Static Snow, to me, is about the idea that I was really obsessed with my loneliness, about this idea that there necessarily exists a best romantic partner for every person in the world, somewhere out there. There are billions of people out there, and you will only meet a fraction of them. And to me, the likelihood that you'll ever meet a person that will make you that happy is infinitesimal. There's a very small chance. If you really consider the idea that that person is out there, exists, and is walking, eating their breakfast cereal, looking all cute, and the notion that you will never know each other made me really sad. And this song was me dedicating something to whoever that person is. Maybe they'll hear it. How fucking cool would that be? This song was in the video game MLB 15 The Show, which I find to be very strange.
That's
I don't know
so
why
weird.
It was in a baseball video game, but shout out, I guess. They were just doing anything, like in the 2010s.
Yeah.
Like EDM was popular, and they were just like, fuck it. Let's put a song about being lonely and depressed in an MLB video game.
That feels so random.
This is my favorite use of Ivana on the album. Choosing to make the robot sing about loneliness is so cool. It makes it feel more personal, like Porter himself can't sing it because it hurts too much. I also love that he wrote loneliness as a curse, because ultimately, I agree. The production on here is crazy. It starts out as a heavy mid-tempo bass song, pulls back into a ballad, and builds to a beautiful melodic drop. And then we get the heavy and funky off-kilter bass again by the end, but it feels more hopeful this time. Another masterclass. I was trying to find a way to say that this is my favorite song, but it will have to settle for second place.
Damn.
For some reason, it has never stuck in my head how incredible this song is. I think partly because the title, which is sick as hell, never connects in my head to what this song actually is. I do still think it fits, though. I gave this one also a 5. Is this your least favorite? Because, you know, I feel like it could be.
It could be. I mean, there's definitely stuff I don't like the distortion. And I'm not the biggest fan of the vocals, and it definitely does feel closer to dubstep again, like the previous song, like Flicker. I will say though, ultimately, I feel like there's enough in the production that I like and that worked for me, where it does keep it at a 3. It's a very low 3. It's bordering on to 2.5, but it definitely worked better for me than Flicker. This I would be like, okay, fine. Like, I'm not going to turn this off, for instance. I'd be like, fine, okay, I don't mind. You know, like there's enough
this
here
is going
to keep
way
me.
worse than I thought it was. Than it would.
Don't worry.
It only gets worse.
Don't worry. I mean, by that logic, the last song is going to be a -30 or something. Like,
hey, I would not put it past you.
Don't worry.
I feel like this is one of those albums where when you say you feel like you're predictable, I don't know. I feel like this is out of the ordinary of what I thought. I thought you were going to like this significantly more than Skrillex. I didn't think you would like it as much as Zed.
Yeah.
But
I feel like it is kind of in between those two, though, because I feel like in some ways I was more negative about Skrillex.
Yes, in many ways.
I know it doesn't seem like that right now, but by the end of the album, you will have seen that, you know, in general, I am more negative about Skrillex than I am about this.
That's
so
great. Anyway.
We'll get there, don't worry.
Track number 6, Polygon Dust, featuring Lemaitre. It's French, and I have heard many different ways of saying this. I've heard Lemaitre as well. I've heard Lemaitre.
Who knows what those damn Frenchmen...
And they're, I think, actually Norwegian, so I don't know why their name is French, but shout out to them, I guess. It was written by them and Porter Robinson. Porter described this beat as J Dillacore, and he said that the opening is very powerful, but not memorable, which I think is a perfect description of it. I said that this is the best pop song on here. I do have to point out that all of the vocals are mixed very weirdly throughout the album, which I never noticed when I was younger. I guess that means I'm growing as a producer, or maybe listening to it in lossless versus MP3 really does make that big of a difference for all you audiophiles out there. This one has such a simple melody that is actually one of the most memorable on here. I've always felt like this one is underrated, both by myself and by the rest of the world. Just banger after banger. 4.5.
I don't know, this song honestly didn't really stand out to me in any specific way. It's not as melodic as I would like it to be, which is ultimately why it is where it is. But honestly, I have barely anything to say about the song because it didn't particularly move me in any one way. So it is kind of just sitting at a 3, honestly. And that's all I have to say.
Track number 7, Hear the Bells, featuring Imaginary Cities, written by Imaginary Cities and Porter Robinson. And it samples Bells of Cologne by Imaginary Cities. He said that he wanted a song for the album that was triumphant and happy, but not overly cheesy. Sadly, this is where the bangers stop. It is a fine song, but it does nothing for me. I gave it a 3. I'm not a fan of the chorus or the vocals on the song. I see how it works for people. And a lot of these songs are long. I can see how that doesn't work for a lot of people because it can feel a little self-indulgent at times. I think that this is the only one where it doesn't work for me, but I see that opinion and I respect it if you feel that way about other songs. The outro is very sweet, though, I wrote. This one is a 3. It is my least favorite. Is this your favorite? Because this is another one that, you know, makes sense to be your favorite.
This is not my favorite, but this is where the album starts to pick up again after kind of this slump for me in the middle. In some ways, this song feels a little bit more ballady, which everyone knows tends to work for me more sometimes.
It's an electronic ballad, though. We don't know much about this.
That's true. But I will say it did work better for me. It doesn't stand out the way that my favorite songs do, but it is a 3.5. And I do think that there's a balance between the elements I like and don't like that much here, or maybe the elements that I like start to appear more or be more frequent than the elements that I might not like as much. And I think that's why, not to spoil things, but that's why there is kind of a little run of positivity here that we're starting right now. So ironically, we are diverging again. This is a 3.5.
I respect it. I kind of forgot this song existed for a long time because when I owned this song, I just wouldn't download it like to listen to.
It's kind of the opposite where I found Polygon Dust kind of forgettable, and then you found this song kind of forgettable.
I kind of purposely did forget it for a while, though. I don't know. I don't want it to sound like I'm overly negative. Like, it's still a 3. No, this is still a good song. It's just not as good as any of the others on here. Track number 8, Natural Light, written by Porter Robinson. This song is a tribute to IDM, and it was tentatively called Idle Sadness, but he said that title was never used because it is embarrassing. This is always where I felt like the second section of the album starts, probably because it does function as an interlude, and it's much quieter than almost all of the songs that come before it. This one has by far the least amount of streams, which is crazy. I love the restraint shown overall because it would be easy to get carried away and just make this a true like dubstep song. This one has always been a standout for me. I'm not sure I hear the sadness in it like Porter said he was intending. It feels more like futuristic hotel lobby music to me. I ended up giving it a 4, and I picked this one as one you wouldn't like because it's a tribute to IDM, and there's a lot of weird sounds in there, and it's an interlude, which are kind of all things that you don't like. Now tell me that you actually like this song.
I found the quiet parts of the production for the song to actually be really beautiful. And there was a lot here that I ended up enjoying, even though like all the elements in it are elements that I typically don't enjoy. So ironically, I really do feel like this album is like mixing up what I like and don't like in some ways. Like in some ways it's reinforcing it, and in some ways it's throwing it out the window and bringing up totally new things. This is a 3.5, and it's honestly kind of close to a 4. And the big reason why it's not a 4 is honestly, it just isn't long enough. Like I don't think it has time to develop.
Interlude.
Yeah. It doesn't have time to like fully develop. I feel like it feels a little underbaked pretty much. But it is at a 3.5, and ironically, with Hear the Bells and Natural Light, they are kind of building to Lionhearted.
No, that makes me think you're going to have a track 9 theory here with track number 9, Lionhearted, featuring Urban Cone, written by Andy Conan, Ben Swordlick, and Eric Luttrell, all from the band The M Machine, Porter Robinson, and Emil Anders Gustafsson and Carl Eric Rasmus Flicht, both of Urban Cone. This was the 3rd single, released June 17th, 2014. It peaked at number 25 on the Billboard Hot Dance Electronic Songs and number 9 on the US Dance Club Songs. This song is one of the originators of track 9 theory, like my own track 9 theory.
Whoa.
Because it was my favorite single and favorite song on the album for the first year that it was out. Now Flicker has been my favorite for like the past 9 years, essentially. But this was the song where I was like, oh my God, this is the best. And this is when I started noticing track 9 is actually always good. And maybe not always, but that was the theory for a long time.
Until we started doing a podcast.
Exactly. I talked about how Spectrum by Zed was exactly what I wanted in that moment, and I had a similar experience with this song. I still feel like the combination of indie pop and EDM needs to be explored more. Once I learn how to play the guitar, it is over for you all. Another song that has a very weird mixing, and the structure of it is strange. I'm not sure if I'm used to it again or not. It still bangs though, and it made me a fan of Urban Cone for many years, but they seem to have disappeared in the early 2020s. Fuck it. If Sad Machine is a 4.5, then this one is too. 4.5. Is this your favorite song?
So when the song started, I was like, oh, that'll probably be like a solid song. You know, it's going pretty good. And then the beat dropped and the production takes off. And my reaction was there just like, hell yeah, okay. It hooked me from that moment. The vocals, they're solid. Not my favorite. But I kind of feel like if I am gonna like any vocals, it's gonna be these vocals in this song. And because of that, and because of the production, it kind of came together with this song. Like that balance was found where I can just really get into it. Of course, like there are still some elements that are not my favorite. Like the vocals, yeah, they're solid, but I don't love them. But I feel like because it's so production forward and because that is the center of the song, it just became my favorite in like a heartbeat. It's still a 4, and I do think that elements like the vocals kind of stop it from being a 4.5, but it will be close. And I think that if I learn to get used to this style and like appreciate it more, I do think that this song has the opportunity of going to 4.5.
That is very good to hear.
Yeah.
I did not expect it out of this song specifically, but I'm glad you like it this much because I think this one is a standout on the album too. And it's the song that after the first two singles, which were Sea of Voices and Sad Machine, which we'll talk about Sea of Voices in a little bit, I was kind of like, I don't know what to think about this album. And then I heard this song and I was like, okay, actually it is going to be good.
No, yeah. And I'm also happy that I finally have fulfilled track theory myself.
Yes, track 9 theory for you.
I think there have been a couple times.
I feel like you did it another time, but yeah. But this is the first time that we're acknowledging it as well. Maybe. I don't know. I actually don't remember if we did it on another episode.
And I feel like this is one of the first times where even if it's not your favorite song now, it was one of your like first track 9 theory songs.
Yes.
And the fact that it also is for me, I think.
That is special.
That makes me happy.
I do have to say that this song was the one that allowed me to like get into the rest of the album. And once I got used to this song, then I was kind of more open to everything else on it. Because like Flicker, I don't expect you to ever like.
Yeah.
I'd like straight up, I just don't think you will. I like the weird experimentation there. That's kind of like, that's one of my like core philosophies is like do something that no one's ever done before. Because like, even if it doesn't work all the time, it's still something new. And in this case, it really works for me. And most of the time that does work in general. But Lionhearted, I feel like, is the easiest song to get into. And it's the easiest song to kind of understand how it works and why it works. And then like, you know, you can start to see that in some of the other songs here. So if any song is going to get you into the album, I think it's Lionhearted. And I hope it does because
I agree.
I do think this is a really good album. I mean, obviously, like look at my scores.
Yeah.
That takes us to track number 10, Sea of Voices, written by Brianne Deeren and Porter Robinson. And it features additional vocals from Brianne Deeren. This was the lead single released March 2nd, 2014. It peaked at number 40 on the Billboard Hot Dance Electronic Songs chart. I remember when this song came out as the lead single, and I was kind of pissed. Middle school me was the type of EDM fan that made Porter Robinson hate his life, and that makes me feel some amount of regret. I appreciate this song a lot more now, but I still don't think it really reaches the heights of many others on here. I gave it a 3.5, but I remember when this came out, and people were like, what the fuck is he doing?
Yeah.
Like, this is not an EDM song, even though it is. Like at its heart, it really is. It just is like, it has a long buildup of like kind of ethereal vocals and like production that, you know, is more ambient. What did you think about this one though? Does this continue your run?
I mean, it does.
Hell yeah.
It is, I mean, it's a 3.5, but it does continue the run.
We're in agreement.
Ultimately, like, there's nothing honestly about it that doesn't work for me. The parts that work for me are things that work for me in my favorite songs like Lionhearted. So like the production, the beats, all that kind of stuff. It has a good build. Ironically, ultimately, I think it just doesn't grab me as much as some of the other songs, and that's why it is a 3.5.
I get that. That's the same way I feel.
Yeah, literally. It's ironic though, because it's not like something overly bad in it for me.
No, exactly.
It's just like, yeah, it doesn't catch me. I do like the Zen sound at the beginning though. Feels kind of like a shift from Lionhearted into like another section of the album, if that makes any sense.
I do agree that with that because I think Fellow Feeling is also similar, where it's a huge orchestral piece for the majority of it. And that it's time to talk about it. Track number 11, Fellow Feeling, written by Porter Robinson, and it features vocals from Amma Lee. This is from the World's Commentary. I didn't proofread this, and when he talks, it sometimes doesn't make a lot of sense. So I'm going to stumble through this. It's long also, so watch out. I wanted it to be a very pretty thing that somehow it turned into this very hateful, violent, ugly thing. To me, Fellow Feeling stands for, I wanted people to feel what I felt when it came to aggressive electronic beats and where my head was at the time, how that music was making me feel. I was very frustrated with heavy 128 BPM stuff, and so I turned it into this ugly, evil, chugging techno monster that doesn't really have a danceable meter to it, and it glitches and moves in and out of quarter notes, and it's not in the right key. To me, this song was meant to help people understand where my head was at with dance music. But one of my fears with renouncing dance music was that people were going to take it as me renouncing all of my old music. That's not what I ever wanted. That music stood for something to me at the time, and I wrote it for a reason. To me, the second half of the song is a reference to Language and Easy, earlier songs of mine, which I still very much love, and I wanted to show that I could write this big, loud, melodic music at 128 BPM that was still who I was, and that would fit with my new vision. But this idea of writing aggressive, heavy beats for the sake of it was, I feel like I was expressing some violence towards that idea. I think the vocal makes it pretty literal. I said, I know he didn't want to make a Complextro song, but my God, this does go so hard. I love that it starts with the orchestra, then goes back to it again after the first series of fucked up drops. I predict that you'll say you thought this was going to be your favorite until the drops. This one also spent some time as my favorite, and that final melodic drop goes so hard. I feel like this is the climax of the album, and Goodbye to a World is the true outro. This one is a 4.5.
Yeah, so you were absolutely right. Let me read you the progression. First thing I wrote was, feels like a soundtrack. Me likey. I also like when the beat came in. Then, I don't know if the vocals work for me. And then literally my next note is, I'm going to switch out techno with dubstep.
You can do Complextro too, because that's what this is.
Thank you. That's what I'll do. My next note was, and then the Complexo stuff starts. And yep, it's a no from me. This is my least favorite song.
Hell yeah.
It's a 2.5. And it's a low 2.5. It's almost at a 2. Honestly, it's not at a 2 because of the beginning, which I do like. But yeah, ultimately, like, you guys know why. It's just not my style. It's not something I'm interested in.
We have one final track. Number 12, Goodbye to a World, written by Porter Robinson. And this features vocals from the Vocaloid Ivana. This is another long quote from the World's commentary that I'm going to stumble through. Goodbye to a World is a contender for my favorite song on the album. I remember it was the first time I'd tried to work with like sound fonts, N64 type sounds, and write stuff that was really channeling my nostalgia from the early 2000s, late 90s, and games in that vein. And there was a huge, enormous thunderstorm outside. It was like a windstorm. It was one of those days where like the sky turns green, you know, and a huge tree had collapsed over my driveway. And so there was no getting out of the house, and it was just pouring down rain. You know, the power was cutting out. And that was the atmosphere I had when I wrote Goodbye to a World. And how perfect is it that it was like apocalyptic outside? That's just so crazy to me. I mean, maybe that informed the title and theme of the song, but this is another song with a robot vocal. And yeah, I mean, I think if you listen to it, the message is pretty upfront. You know, to me, it's very clearly a sad song, but this notion of world destruction or a world disappearing is really dear to me. I've talked about it in interviews before, but I was very, very much attached to these online worlds and MMORPGs like World of Warcraft type stuff. I was really into a game called Star Wars Galaxies and another one called City of Heroes. And the thing about these games is that when an online role-playing game that millions of people are connected to goes away, when the game ceases to be profitable and the servers shut down, it's not like other games where 10 years down the line you can just plug in the cartridge and bask in the nostalgia. It's not like that. Once those games are gone, those worlds that you very much immersed yourself in are gone. And that was a big deal to me when my favorite games disappeared and I couldn't go there anymore. And as an adult now, I think it's just a very romantic notion. And that's why I think the whole idea of like a beautiful apocalypse is really evocative to me. I love that. You know, this isn't a zombie death thing here. This is like pretty, you know? This is a beautiful world kind of disappearing in a clean way. That's sort of how I see it. I will give you 800 tries to guess who sampled this song in 2018. I don't think you will ever get it. Give me a few right now.
Try XCX.
No.
Taylor Swift. I'm trying to find the people that were most unlikely. Skrillex.
Mariah Carey.
What?
Yep.
Yeah,
told you.
I cannot guess that.
I remember hearing that and I was like, wow, she just ruined the song. I still feel that way. I'm not apologizing for that. I always forgot how good this song is. For a while, I didn't think it lived up to anything else on the album, and I have no idea what I was on. It is so beautiful, and it captures the sadness of the album the best of any song on here. I felt in my heart that I had to raise its score on my final listen. It is the perfect way to end the album, so therefore it has to be a perfect 5. What did you think about this one? Does it work for you? I think there's a little bit more here that calls back to something similar to Zed, but I don't know if you'll like the robot vocals at all.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't really like the vocals, but ultimately this ended up being something closer to like Polygon Dust, where I didn't particularly like really, really dislike something, but it was also at the same time just kind of meh. It's not bad. It just didn't really catch me in any way and just kind of left it at a 3. Like I didn't even notice the vocals very much. I don't know. I don't think it's a bad end to the album. I think it works as the end. I definitely wish though that there was something more to like grab me in this specific song, because I feel like if there was something more, I don't know if it's propulsive or more melodic, but if there was just something more, I think that I would have actually quite liked this song in spite of the vocals. So I don't know. Interesting way to end. For sure.
Damn, this album was low-key a flop for you, but that is okay. I ended up rating it a 4.5. I don't know that this is the greatest EDM album of all time. I don't really know what I would consider the greatest EDM album of all time to be, but this is up there. I think this is really well done, and it did change the sound of EDM. I don't know, like we talked about with Zed, like it made pop more accessible, more... I don't know. It made producers, I guess, more willing to try pop crossover things, which I think is ultimately a good thing because that led to some of the best music in the late 2010s. I loved this. I've seen people say it's not as good as they remember it being. Honestly, I disagree with that. I think it is still as good as I remember it being, and it might actually be a little bit better. Like, I feel like I appreciate it more now listening to the other 2 albums that Porter Robinson has released and being like, wow, actually this is kind of like amazing. So tell me what you think. And I'm very curious about your score because I don't know which direction you're going to go in.
This was a really interesting experience because I've definitely had reactions to albums and obviously to songs where, you know, I was a little bit more mixed, where some stuff worked and some stuff didn't. And my score was kind of in the middle of my feelings. But I feel like that hasn't happened to such an extent. Like, I genuinely, while I was listening to some of these songs, I was literally going back and forth between 2 scores from minute to minute because of the fact that some elements just really worked for me and some elements just didn't. I don't know, it was a very different experience to what I typically go through with an album, where I definitely feel like I know exactly how I feel, even sometimes partway through the song, although obviously I try not to form an opinion until I finish the song. While here, it was definitely like, sometimes I felt kind of lost, but I think ultimately the fact that this does focus more on the melody and the fact that it kind of pushes that forward, while the dubstep and complextro elements are there, but maybe not pushed as hard or not in the forefront the way they are with Skrillex's music, does ultimately help this, in my opinion. And that is why it is a 3.5 for me. So you were right. And I do like this more than I like Skrillex.
Okay, that's good.
But I do prefer Zed.
Yeah.
More than I prefer this. And I mean, obviously, for me, nothing yet has really touched Daft Punk and S.G. Lewis. It was just a very different experience, which honestly is nice. Like I want as many different experiences with music as I can, because that's how you build taste, I feel like.
Yes. And now I know that I need to fast track the next 2 Porter Robinson albums because they don't sound anything like this. I'll tell you that each album is a completely different experience. So yeah, if you like pop music, you'll like Smile. If you like more of the like ethereal kind of like, I don't even know how to describe it, you'll like Nurture, which I think is, both albums are probably 4.5s for me as well. So, you know, that's just consistency, even when he's experimenting in completely different genres.
That's very true.
But I have to ask you, will you add any of these songs to playlists? And I kind of think you won't return to the album as a whole, but maybe you will someday.
Who knows? I might return. There have been times where I've returned to albums that I haven't liked as much to see if my opinions have changed. And I honestly want to start doing that more because I've only done like once or twice. But yeah, I mean, I'm going to add Lionhearted. I'm probably going to add Sad Machine too. I just got to figure out what playlist I'm going to add it to because I don't know yet.
You got to have an EDM playlist. I'm a big advocate for this.
True. Honestly, I think it's time.
It is time. You've liked enough music where I think it's time for an EDM playlist.
That is true.
I do have to ask you, do you consider yourself a fan of Porter Robinson now?
I am tentatively close to being a fan, I feel like. I think I need to listen to more.
Okay.
And I think I need to listen to how his style has changed, because obviously you have told me his style has changed a lot. So I want to listen to his more recent stuff. I think for right now, it definitely is more of a situation where specific elements work better for me. I feel like it's not enough that works for me to be a full-on fan.
I do have one final question for you. That's a new one that I thought of specifically because this pairing kind of makes no sense. What did you think of this pairing? Was there any like parallel you were able to draw between them outside of Flicker having Japanese vocals and this movie being Japanese?
There wasn't a direct connection in terms of like, they're a similar style or in the same language specifically. But I did see the connection of this is a very important album in the EDM genre, and the movie is a very important movie in the samurai genre, and as one of kind of the like tenets of Japanese cinema, if that makes any sense. So in that way, I feel like it does make sense to me. It makes more sense than something like Jurassic Park and Ariana Grande, for instance. So
I will also say, I feel like both of these are very expansive worlds.
Yeah.
See what I did there? They both feel like epics. Like this album has always felt like an epic to me because it's like a huge journey through a bunch of different sounds and a bunch of different styles and a lot of characters too, weirdly. Like each song kind of has its own thing going on, but they all feel like part of the same story, which I feel like is kind of in some ways similar to an epic movie like Seven Samurai, where there's a lot of different people, there's a lot of different plots going on that all converge into one big fight scene at the end, you know?
I think the important distinction is that they're also meant to be like that.
They're supposed to take you on a journey. And that's what we're about to do right now, because it's the movie section.
That's right, because we are talking about Seven Samurai, which in Japanese is... I'm kidding. I'm not doing that. No. I just want to throw this out there. I am sorry for the way that I'm going to butcher these people's names. Like, I'm sorry. Throwing it out there. I do not speak Japanese, so I'm very sorry. But we are talking about Seven Samurai, which is an epic... and I'm sorry, but it's an epic Jidaigeki film.
Don't know. Can't help you.
Which is a Japanese genre that I think roughly correlates to like a period piece. I think in Japan, they have like two broad genres where it's like set in the modern day and then set in like a more historic film. And then all the other genres are kind of like under that, if that makes any sense. So this is obviously a period film. I'm going to throw out the IMDb logline and you got to tell me what you think. So here it goes. Farmers from a village exploited by bandits hire a veteran samurai for protection, and he gathers 6 other samurai to join him.
Sure, I guess.
I feel like there was a better way of phrasing that.
Yes.
Now comes the section I'm not looking forward to because I have to pronounce names, and I know I'm going to mispronounce all of them, but here it goes. Here are the credits. This film is directed by Akira Kurosawa. Starting out pretty good.
I've heard that one before.
Because I know how to pronounce it. Produced by Sojiro Motoki. Written by Akira Kurosawa, Shinobu Hashimoto, and Hideo Oguni. Cinematography by Azakazu Nakai. Edited by Akira Kurosawa. Music by Fumio Hayasaka. And distributed by Toho. And this film is not rated.
Ah.
Yeah. I think because it's an old foreign film. That's why.
Yeah.
It also stars Toshiro Mifune, Takashi Shimura, Isao Kimura, Yoshio Tsuchiya, Bokuzin Hidari, Yoshio Inaba, and Seiji Miyaguchi, amongst like 100 other people.
Damn, you're doing pretty well until the actors.
Yeah, that's where it really threw me off. Let's talk about this film a little bit before we talk about what you thought, because this is a big film. It's long, a lot going on. So if there's one movie where stuff is probably going to go wrong, you can guess that it's going to be on a movie like this. And it did. So Let's talk about Akira Kurosawa first a little bit, because I'm guessing you don't know anything about him.
Not really. I know he's Japanese.
Well, he was born in 1910. He grew up watching movies. He watched a lot of Western films too, aka like stuff from America growing up. And he eventually got into assistant directing before he started to work as a writer. And he realized something very important. And that was, if you want to be a good director, you have to be a good writer.
Amen.
Right? Like finally someone understood. So he really worked on learning how to write. And then he eventually, of course, transitioned into directing. And he directed a lot of films, but it wasn't really until 1950 when his movie Rashomon came out that he gained a lot of recognition internationally, even though a lot of his work did not get the best reception in Japan, or it was better received in international circles than it was in Japan because it was kind of viewed as being too quote unquote Western compared to some other Japanese directors. Yeah, it's really weird. Like there is definitely this distinction between him and some other directors in Japan. Not now, I'm sure, but like when he was making films. But the success of that film plus the success of his next film, Akira, which are two of his biggest films, probably the two biggest films after this film, kind of helped him solidify his position as like one of the biggest directors working at the time in Japan. And that was also in large part because there were critical successes, not only box office successes. So he quickly moved into making this film, and he knew he wanted to make a period film, but he didn't have a story. So eventually during research, he came across a story of samurais that were hired to protect villagers from bandits. And he was like, wow, that's literally perfect. So he took this to Shinobu Hashimoto and Hideo Oguni, who he had worked with before, and they all worked on the script together. So they started making detailed notes for all the samurai, which included how they talked and how they tied their shoes. That's how detailed they got. And they made family trees for the village.
Oh, that's cool.
That sounds like something that we honestly do.
Mm-hmm.
The way that they wrote, because all three of them were working on this at the same time, the way that they wrote was they would go off by themselves and would write specific scenes and then share their work. And Oguni had final decision over which drafts would be used, which is kind of crazy that it's not the director, it's Oguni. And I think that there's a reason for this because Kurosawa said that Hashimoto was kind of the more technical writer, while Oguni was the humanist soul of the trio. And that's kind of why he was the one to make the final decision. It was written over 6 weeks. I don't know if that was just the first draft or the overall script, but it was long, needless to say. And it was during the writing that Kurosawa got sick for the first time with ringworm.
Oh.
Now, of course, they had a massive script, so they quickly jumped into pre-production. They had at least 3 months with pre-production with Toho, which is probably the biggest film production company in Japan to this day. And I think it's been the biggest like forever. And they had worked a lot of times with Kurosawa. So they were like, great, well, we will work on it. It's a long script, but still, we will give you... Actually, you know what? Do you want to guess how much they gave him to make this film?
In 1950s money?
Yes.
Like
also in Japan.
Oh, I don't know the conversion rate between yen. I'm going to go $3 million of US money.
In US money, it was $150,000 to $200,000.
Oh, 1,000?
1,000.
Oh,
yes.
When you said 100, I was like, oh, I was way off.
Yeah, no.
Whoa.
No, it was so much lower, which is crazy. I do think that a part of it is that at the time, it was a lot cheaper, especially there. Don't forget, this is like 10 years after the war.
True, yeah.
And a lot of stuff was still being rebuilt, but that is still crazy low. And that will be an issue, needless to say. A lot of pre-production included finding locations. Eventually, the village would be shot in 5 separate locations, including a set that had 23 houses built on it. Meanwhile, for the cast, a lot of the cast was fleshed out with Kurosawa's frequent collaborators. If you just look at the 2 main actors, which are Takeshi Shimura as like the lead samurai and then Toshio Mifune as Kikuchiyo, they have worked with him like upwards of 10 times. Like he almost had like a repertoire of actors that he always went to. And those two were kind of like the two that he would kind of go back to as his two leading men in a lot of stuff. He also did hire a lot of first-time or non-actors. They jump into rehearsals. They have 4 weeks of those, but nothing could prepare them for what the production would actually be like. Because nothing
Jesus
can.
Christ.
Yeah. Filming began on May 23rd. Keep that date in mind. And they right away started to fall behind schedule.
Classic.
Partially because of the weather, partially because of Kurosawa's perfectionism, and partially because it took a long time to go between the 5 different locations that they had, especially considering that they had 40 horses that they had to send in between these various locations. And it got so bad that eventually they just started using local horses to each location and just painting them to look the same.
Oh, God.
Which is just hilarious. I'm just imagining someone with like a paintbrush, just like, all right, we got to make you brown, horse. By mid-July, like 2 months later, Kurosawa has to go to the hospital due to exhaustion. That's how crazy things have been going. And he goes to the hospital, he gets better, he comes back to set on August 1st, and they had filmed 1/3 of the script. Do you want to guess how much budget they had left?
Oh my God, it's probably negative.
They had $19,000 left.
Oh God.
Yeah. So things were not great. And this is August 18th. So they're like, what are we supposed to do? By September, all the money runs out. They literally can't film. It gets suspended. Kurosawa, he's like, the studio will support me. I'll just go fishing while I wait for them to give me more money. He's just like, it's fine. I'll go fishing. And he was right because the studio did give him money. They gave them a bigger budget, which allowed them to continue filming until October 3rd.
That doesn't seem like enough time.
Well, we'll see. One of the actors, Yoshio Tsuchiya, who plays Rikichi, this was the first thing he ever worked on, like the first film he ever worked on, and he did not realize how long the project was going to be. After 3 months on set, he went to Kurosawa and he was like, hey, can I go on a holiday? Like, can I have some time off, please? And Kurosawa was like, no. But he got scared that he would just leave regardless. So he was like, hey, do you want to just like move in with my family and live with us for a couple of years, like while we're filming this? And he was like, sure, I guess I'll save money. So he lived with them for 2 years.
Jesus.
Including after the film was done filming. They blew past October 3rd.
Naturally.
They go on filming into 1954. And at that point, the pressure from the studio got so intense that Kurosawa was like, okay, fine, I will film one last scene, just one. Do you want to guess what scene he was planning to film as his last scene?
It's got to be the fight.
It's the whole fight scene, which is like, yeah, he specifically left this as the last scene to film because he knew that if he shot this earlier, then the studio would have the ending to the film and they could just be like, you're done. You're not filming the rest of the film and we're just going to cut it together how it is, which is smart. But it took 2 months to film the scene.
Oh my
with
God.
Multiple cameras running at the same time. They had like 3 cameras. A lot of times it was snowing, and with the artificial rain, there was actual risk of frostbite. After they finally finished the scene, Toshiro Mifune went to the hospital to recover. So he also went.
Oh my God.
Altogether, 7 Samurai, obviously taking out the days where they had to stop, it took 148 days to shoot.
Wow.
And took 130 feet of film. The final budget clocked in around $556,000 to $580,000, which is not that much higher than like what they initially gave them, which I think means that they gave them the lower side of the estimate, which was 150.
Damn.
So still $500,000. Which is really low.
Yeah. I mean, I really haven't. We also don't know like how money works now because inflation is like out of control. So I'm assuming that's probably around the like 10 to 20 million mark. But still, even then, for a movie of this scale, that is insane.
Yes, it is genuinely insane. I don't know how they did it. Now, when it was approaching its release date, it was already facing attacks from the Japanese press. It seemed like they had kind of a rocky relationship in some with Kurosawa. Something else that got attacked was its runtime. Now, the first cut, the one that was originally released in Japan for a limited run, was the full 207-minute run that came out in 1954. This version was later cut down to 160 minutes for the wide run, which is like 2 hours and 40 minutes. Like, that's a lot shorter.
Still long, though.
Still long, yeah. That's crazy that that's the shorter cut. But eventually the 207-minute run was released in Japan in 1975 and 1991. In the US, meanwhile, they cut it down all the way to 155 minutes, then cut out a further 15 minutes for its run, because America's gonna America. Eventually, a 200-minute version aired on PBS, and a 203-minute version was re-released in 1982.
This is a real Blade Runner kind of deal.
Literally,
it's like
a bunch of different cuts. Yeah.
I watched all 207 minutes, I'll tell you that much.
Well, and that's because eventually that version was restored and it was like fully cleaned up, etc., etc. And in spite of like the different cuts that were flying around, it was actually a success with Japanese audiences. It made $744,000 to $800,000, which again is not that much, but its budget was like nothing, so it still made money. Again, it could be a lot more in Japan at that time. Like, we just don't know. It was also critically well received, although quite a few people felt that it was too much of like a populist film to be like truly good or to be compared to movies that were genuinely like art, which is ironic considering how it's perceived now.
Yeah.
In spite of this, it did receive 2 nominations at the 29th Academy Awards, one for Best Art Direction and for Best Costume Design, and it didn't win either. I don't know if the international category was around.
I didn't even know they nominated international movies for like regular things back then.
I feel like it would actually sometimes happen more then than it does now. I feel like it would never happen for Best Picture then, which it does now.
Yeah.
But they were more willing to like put those movies in for the like below the line categories pretty much. Needless to say, Seven Samurai's stature quickly grew. And when the original cut was shown in Japan in 1975, it was praised as a flagship of Japanese cinema. And it not only like changed how movies were made in Japan because of its scale, but it was highly influential in the West, obviously. We have talked about how people like George Lucas, Steven Spielberg, Martin Scorsese drew inspiration from it and from the rest of his filmography. I mean, Star Wars is literally just like Kurosawa's movies, but in space.
Damn.
Like, George Lucas was directly inspired by them. And to finish off, it's not only considered one of his best films, but it's also considered one of the best films ever made. It's the most popular in his filmography and arguably the best known Japanese film of its time and of all time. Which brings me to the question, and I kind of know the answer to this question, but is this the first Kurosawa film that you have seen? And if not, how does it compare to what you have seen?
Yes, well, you do know the answer to this question because I asked you, have I seen a Kurosawa film before? And the answer is yes. Throne of Blood, we watched
together
when we were in college at CSUN. Shout out CSUN, although they're doing some weird shit around AI. Sadly. So I don't really know how I feel about them currently. But nonetheless, we watched this movie, and I don't know how long that one was. It felt very long.
That movie was 1 hour and 49 minutes.
Seriously. That's crazy.
Seriously.
That movie felt extremely long and was also worse than this. So
just to throw it out, I do think that film is weaker than this film, like quite a bit weaker.
Yeah. I just remember watching that one and like after it was over, everybody was like, wow, this is like incredible. And I was just thinking, I don't think I watched the same movie as everybody else because there was really nothing special going on there. So, you know, that's just how I am, I guess, and how I've always been because that was years ago.
Yeah.
So yes, I have seen another Kurosawa movie, but going into this, I did not realize that I had. So I was kind of going in blind once again.
Well, and I'm sure that the length was not something that made you happy, which does bring me to my next question of how does this compare to the other 3.5 hour long movies that we've watched?
I mean, God, what have we watched? We've watched The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Megalopolis was like 3 hours, wasn't it?
Close, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Blade Runner was
No.
up there.
Blade
maybe?
Runner just
No?
feels long
Oh.
as hell because it's boring and bad. I mean, I wrote down one thing about this movie explicitly, which is I'm not sure that any movie needs to be this long. That's just kind of how I feel. I don't know what the cutoff point is for me. It's somewhere around 2.5 hours, though, I think, where after that, it's just kind of like, I don't know that I'm getting anything additional out of this. Like at some point, I'm just like, I'd rather watch this as a TV show than a movie because it's just so long. And I feel like I'm going to have to split it up anyway, that it's just like...
Which ironically, this film is split.
Right, yes, which actually kind of like gave me a reason to watch it in 2 parts instead of just like trying to power through it, which was nice. And I did appreciate that. So I watched the part 1 earlier in the day and then part 2 later.
They should bring, what are they called? Intermissions back.
I agree. Although I disagree because I don't think movies should be that long. I like
Right.
it in theory, but you know, the length was a problem for me with this movie. It wasn't a problem as early as I thought it would be. I think I lasted, through the first the first half, I was engaged the whole time. Through, I would say 30 minutes of the second half, I was engaged. After that, I was kind of like, all right, get to the fight scene. Like, I know it's coming up.
Yeah.
You know, I'm ready for it. So I do think the length was a problem, but I don't think if it was shorter, it would have raised my score at all.
Oh, that's interesting.
You know, it didn't make me upset that it was this long. I mean, it kind of did because it's like, oh my God, this is long as hell. But it wasn't like when I was watching it, I wasn't like, Jesus Christ, like this movie never ends. Not like The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Yeah. No, I'm happy that it didn't overly negatively affect your score because I don't know, I think it is nice to know that like the film was able to ultimately stand on its own 2 legs in some fashion, if that makes any sense. One last question I want to ask, which is a question that I want to start asking every time is, would you watch this again?
No, I think once was enough.
Yeah.
I think
can see that.
I understand it. It's not bad, but it's not something where when I was done, I was like, I can't wait to see that again. I can't wait to reevaluate it. I don't think watching it again would change anything about it. I don't think it would make it better. I don't think it would make it worse. I think it's just a long movie, and I don't think I really like long movies. For being such a long movie, I think throughout the entire thing, it's quite straightforward, and you kind of understand a lot of stuff that's happening. Now, I did have trouble understanding stuff sometimes because I am face blind.
Yeah. And some of the people look very similar.
Some of the people look similar. I don't mean that in a racist way.
No. I mean, some of the people have looked similar in some of the other movies that we've watched too. I mean,
yes. I feel like any group of people, like if it's all white people in a movie, I am going to confuse them all. I think that's true of any group. It works the best when people look noticeably different. I'm like, okay, yes. I know who this is. But also, black and white movies, oh my God, true. I just can't. I need some sort of like hair color, eye color, something to look at where I'm like, okay, this is this person. There was only...
Right, it exacerbates the problem for you.
Yes, there were only like 2 people that I really recognized. There was Yohei because his face was always in that same expression, which was so annoying, and I hated looking at it. And then
oh damn!
And then there was the guy, I don't know how to say it. Is it Mifune? Is his last name something like that?
Mifune, yeah.
Yes. He reminded me of a Japanese Bad Bunny.
Oh, I can kind of see it.
And every time he was on screen, I was like, okay, that's Bad Bunny. And I know who that is. And I know what his purpose is. Everybody else I was kind of confused on. I got the guy with the good hair, but then he shaved off the top of his head for some reason. The young guy. And I don't remember his name. I don't remember any of these people's names because there's so many of them, which is another thing that I feel like is a downside of it. 7 main characters is a lot. However, I do like it. It's just like, okay, I don't know fully who everybody is all the time.
Well, and I think it is like 7 main samurai, but only a few of them are really like main characters.
Yes, which I also thought was kind of strange.
Yeah, I'm going to throw it over to you. Like, just take it away because I don't have any more questions and I really want to hear what you think. I know you've kind of started.
Yeah, I don't really have much else to add onto it other than like, I'll give you my score right now. This is a 2.5.
Oh,
this
okay.
is the most
So,
like
in the middle.
2.5 movie that we've watched. There's nothing that I loved about it. There's nothing that I hated about it. I feel somewhat indifferent after watching it. I think it was interesting to watch. I'm glad I watched it one time, but I don't think I need to watch it again. I don't think anything will change my mind about it. It was not bad. It was not good. It's very average.
Down the middle.
I do think it's interesting that this is considered one of the best Japanese films. I mean, it's better than Throne of Blood, which we watched. So like, I'll give it that.
Right.
Like, I don't know. I feel like there are definitely other Japanese films that I will like more than this. And I have a feeling that they will be modern because I think I kind of just like modern movies a little bit better. At least modern in a sense where there's color in them.
I do wonder if you would like some of his other shorter films.
I do think that that has a better chance of hitting for me because, I mean, I don't want to say this and then have to walk it back in the future, but I do really feel like so far, all of the movies we've watched that have been long don't really have a reason to be that long. Like, at least to me, I don't feel like it justifies it in a way where it's like, yeah, the story needs to be very long and very broad and sweeping. I think a big problem that I've noticed with a lot of these longer movies is they take a long time to really get into, I mean, Act 2, which is like the heart of the story, you know? And I had that with The Lord of the Rings too, where the first movie, it takes like a solid 45 minutes to an hour before it gets into the story. And it's like, okay, now we're ready after all of this backstory. And I don't know that that always works for me.
And I will say with that film, that's because we did watch the extended cuts where I prefer the shorter cuts, like the theatrical cut of that specific movie.
Yes, it is still long though. Like
It is
I
still
think
long, yeah. No, it
just
is.
the length in general is not really something that works that well for me.
Yeah, no, I get that.
But we had this marked down in the document as one of David's favorite movies. So I want to hear what you think about this movie because you told me you own it too.
I do own it, yeah. And I'm probably, when I move out, I'm probably going to buy a really nice edition of it too, because this is one of the films that I feel like is worth having. I actually want to read part of a review. I say part because this is a very long review, but I want to read the first paragraph of a review that a Letterboxd user left. So shout out to Jake Cole. 3.5 hours has never felt so short. This film pretty much single-handedly shaped the modern action epic, but I wish even a fraction of them took the real lessons from it that you can give an audience effectively all relevant information and set up within an hour and use the rest of that time to deepen our understanding of the characters, their growing relationships to one another, and even the spatial layout of the central set. By the time things pop off in the second half, you have a complete understanding of the village and its surrounding areas, which only adds to the drama of knowing how each wave approaches and is beaten back. This film feels widescreen, but constructing the village at the base of rolling hills beautifully scales the frame vertically from the outset, and even the most laterally crowded shot makes extensive use of the height of the frame as much as the width. There's plenty of on-the-nose dialogue here, whether narratively expository or centered on openly discussing character traits and arcs. But Kurosawa communicates so much to the camera, cutting on movement and making even the most somber, talky scene dynamic with angled character blocking or background and foreground, elements of shoji screens and shadow to create a propulsive sense of movement. The reason I wanted to read this is because rewatching this at this age, there are two things that really stood out to me as being the reasons why this does work so well for me. Obviously, it takes a while for the story to get to, oh, they're protecting the village. In essence, that's like the second half of the film is they're protecting the village, and the first half is getting there. So first, obviously, you form the team, then it's them learning how to deal with the villagers, learning what they need to actually do before the intermission. It definitely like takes a while to get to that point, but it has always worked for me. I think because of the character interactions and the way that the way you see the Seven Samurai come together. And that's the first element that has always worked for me. And that's the way that character relationships are like built and developed. And I think that's partially because it's given enough time and partially because of the actors. obviously it's a giant cast, and it is like some people are more developed than others for sure. But I think the fact that the relationships are very evident and are expanded upon, I think that's the first thing that really struck me, and the big reason why it does work so well. And I think that, for instance, is why Kikuchio, which is Toshio Mifune's character, the guy whose butt is always out, that's why he is, to me and a lot of people, the standout of the film, because you see his whole character arc in his relationship to both the samurai and the villagers. And of course, when you learn that he was a villager and farmer himself, I think that's why he has always stood out to me, on top of the fact that Toshio Mifune is just freaking amazing. And I love him in this film, and he's hilarious. Just running around yelling random shit all the time. Can't get better than that. But that was the first element that really stuck out to me this time watching it.
I do want to say that character, Kikuchio, or however you say it, reminded me of The Ugly from The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
In some ways.
Where, you know, he's kind of like the wild guy, the rogue almost, and he's going to kind of like drive the story along with his, I don't want to say mistakes, misadventures,
but
maybe.
In many ways, mistakes.
Yeah, and I feel like he is also the most memorable. Both
Kikuchio
and The Ugly, like both are the most memorable, and they just kind of reminded me of each other.
I agree.
And I also did want to say before you make your second point, I do agree with something that was brought up in that review. I feel like Kurosawa is almost like Spielbergian in a way, where it's like it feels like you're watching a movie.
Well, and that was literally the second point I was going to bring up, because watching it this time, I noticed how the film is shot and like the way the shots are constructed, and it brought to mind Spielberg.
Damn, we're on the same wavelength here.
No, literally, we have talked so much about how you can tell when someone is a master of their craft from the way that they are able to choreograph shots and the actors in those shots. And that is absolutely like on play here, to the point where I think that like Kurosawa is kind of the master of this. The way that the camera moves like in conjunction with the blocking and the choreography of the actors, it feels like you're watching a film, and it feels you're watching almost like a dance. It makes it, at least for me, it makes it so engaging in the same way that where Spielberg's films feel so engaging, because it feels like you can almost see the thought, and there's some sort of like beauty to this cinematography that a lot of films, especially nowadays, just don't have. Like, it's missing the artistry in it.
Absolutely. Yeah, it feels like you're watching an important film. Like, even if I didn't like it totally, I was still like, okay, yeah, I see why like people love it so much, because you look at it and it's like, wow, this is really cool. Like, even in the absence of color, like I was thinking about the shot of, I don't know his name, laying in the flower bed. And I was like, this is like really beautiful. And it's shot so well, it's framed so well. And even if there's no color, like you can kind of see the vibrancy of the world.
Well, the scene that always comes to mind is any of the funeral scenes where they're sitting like on the hill. I have found those to always strike me because of the way that they're framed, and also because of the way, and this is something that he does throughout all of his films, but the way that he uses like crowds to tell the audience the emotion, if that makes any sense. Like he will like use a crowd and show and like track the emotion for the audience through the way that the crowd like reacts to things, which I think is just such a cool way of doing it that, you know, we really don't do anymore. Now it's all just reaction shots to be like, oh, he's sad, or you're supposed to feel like this, or like the music is like, oh, you're supposed to be scared. But here it's through the use of like movement and actors. Look, people have said everything about this film. I can't add much. So I just wanted to bring out the two things that stood out to me the most watching it this time. The first time I saw this, I was probably like 12. And I was like, yep, that's awesome. So that should tell you what type of 12-year-old I was. AKA,
You were obsessed with Japan?
No, it was just hard for me to get bored. That's the type of kid I was. Because honestly, I'm like, how was I watching this as a 12-year-old and not getting bored?
That is kind of
crazy. It makes sense as an adult, but as a 12-year-old, what? I am in agreement with people that say this is the best film or one of the best films ever made. it's a 5. I can't add much to the conversation because it is one of those films where literally everyone has talked about it, has like analyzed it, has gone over it a million times.
At this point, I am a little concerned for you at the end of this season trying to pick your favorite movie that we've watched.
It's fine.
There have been so many 5s that you've said, this is one of the best movies I've ever seen.
Okay, yes.
And I feel like last season we had a lot of 5s where you were like, this is so good. I love it. This season, I feel like we've stepped it up a notch where you're like, this is one of the best movies ever made.
True. There are a lot of masterpieces in the season, but I think there's still a difference between a masterpiece and a masterpiece that I have like a deeper emotional connection with. Because look, I absolutely love this, absolutely one of the best films ever made, but I'm not going to rewatch it every year. It's just not that type of movie. And also, there are some films that just strike me on a deeper level, and this is not one of those films, even though it's still like, in my opinion, a 10 out of 10, one of the best films ever made. It's kind of what we talked about with Knives Out, for instance, where the first film is better made than the third one, but my favorite one is the third one because I feel a deeper connection with it. Of course, in this case, my favorite movie is not going to be like a 4-star movie. It's going to be a 5, and I'm still going to consider it a masterpiece, but my relationship with it is going to be a little bit different.
Interesting.
So don't you worry. We're fine.
There are still definitely a few on here that you've
still
had
quite
a deep
few
emotional connection to. So
true.
It'll still be hard for you. I'm looking ahead at the albums we're going to do, and I'm pretty sure I know what's going to be number 1. Not to spoil it, sometime this season, there's an album that I will be rating a 5 out of 5 too. So
ooh, I'm excited.
Something to look forward to. And who knows, and maybe it'll be next week's. Next week is episode 15. So if you remember what we did for episode 15 last season, we watched Megalopolis and we listened to 143 by Katy Perry. That was our bad episode. And we might be doing something similar.
Yeah. Needless to say, I'm not looking forward to that.
Yeah, David is really pumped about this album that we're listening to next week. And on that note, we have reached the end of the episode. So if you want to support the show, rate us on Spotify, leave a comment on Spotify, leave a review on Apple Podcasts, tell your friends, tell your family, tell your enemies, and any white people you know who are obsessed with Japan.
There's a lot of you out there.
There really are. It's kind of scary.
And if you want to email us about how this movie was way too long, or with angry words about the fact that I keep on calling dubstep techno music, you can email us at upcpod@gmail.com. And in any case you were like, oh my God, what did they rate this movie? You can also find our letterbox pages, our Rate Your Music pages on our link tree. You know what else you can find on that same link tree, which is in the description of this episode? Well, you can find our TikTok and our YouTube pages. That's right. We have both, and we are actively uploading not only episodes, but also fun additional content for you guys. If you want to see if we are indeed doing an episode filled with a bad movie and bad album that David maybe does not want to listen to at all, you can check that out on our Instagram. With that, we got to say,
see you next week.
Bye.